Welcome to Balanced Life with Debi, Carlin, Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debi Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debi Carlin Boyle.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to my show. Wow, I think about this, and I've been doing 8 years of these shows, first with my co-host, Del A.D. Jones, and now I've been 4 or 5 years, I think, on my own. So I have so much content, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because I have a YouTube channel. I would love for you to go to it. The content there has every subject in the health and wellness realm, everything you can think of that we deal with, autoimmune diseases, cancers, fatigue, which we're going to be talking about today, addictions, emotional, spiritual, all kinds of health hacks are on there because I have the experts in their field that are very specific about what they do, and we really dig into it deep. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can watch those shows and you can gain a lot of free information about what you can do to help yourself live a happier, healthier, and longer age young life. That's my big mantra, age young. You guys know me for that. And those that don't know me, I want to welcome you to the show. You're here with me. This is Balanced Life, conversations that connect to a healthier you. That's what I try to do. And the other thing I try to do is get you involved in the conversation with us, with my guests, whether they're in studio or on Zoom. We can all talk to each other. So if you're watching live, listen up, write this down, take this phone number. It's area code 323-524-2599. Again, 323-524-2599. Call us, ask a question. If you have a comment, if you have a story that is within the realm of the subject we're talking about, we want to hear from you. Now, if it's after the fact and you're watching the show either on my YouTube channel or my Facebook page, I want you to make a comment or ask a question anyway by just going to the comment section. I check that during the show if it's easier for you to go to the comment section live, or I keep checking back after the show. I get notifications when I get comments. So that way I can go to my guest, the expert, and they can come back with the answers for you. So don't hesitate. Don't be shy. The idea is that we help a greater population. So you've also, since you're here watching my podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and a health and nutrition coach. So I help people find all the things that feed us in life in addition to the food on our plate, to create balance, to find alignment, to find a way to kind of crowd out the bad with the good. And it always helps to have somebody in your corner edging you on who has some expertise and has some knowledge, some hard facts and science about what you can do. I meet you where you're at the time, whether it's weight loss, whether it's an autoimmune disease or something that you might be struggling with. We dial it in and I work with you individually to help you create a life of balance, which will hopefully give you a life of joy and happiness, because there's nothing better than feeling good. And that's how you move forward in life, because that's when things start happening around you. If you're dealing, we're going to talk about this today extensively, but if you're dealing with not feeling good for whatever reason, you got to get down to the root cause of that. And that's what we're all about today. But I can help you also from anywhere in the world, because I work with people. I work with multiple people. I do workshops, I do Zoom, and I do one-on-one if you're in the Los Angeles area. So to reach me, you want to go to my website, which is Balanced Life by Debi, DEBI.com. And there you're going to see a way to have a conversation with me right away. Just say, contact me, and you'll just click on that, and you'll get me, and we'll start talking immediately. And I give a 30-minute free consultation, so there's no reason not to get in touch if you can. So there you have it. I hope that I hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. Just make a comment or ask a question, anything you want, even if you don't want that consultation. I love to hear from my listeners. So go ahead and make that leap and do that. So for today's show, I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about chronic fatigue. So we're going to go to the intro. Chronic fatigue is defined by extreme fatigue that cannot be explained by an underlying medical condition. So enter my guest, Dr. Jenny Toofunkian. Dr. Jenny has been treating chronic illness for 2 decades. Having complex chronic fatigue herself, she had no choice but to dig deep into the literature and uncover the root causes of chronic fatigue. Through her research and experience, she developed an effective system to unlock the 5 core root causes so that people who are too exhausted to function can start feeling like themselves again. She shares this system with clients and practitioners online and in person. Her unique spin and secret power is to combine a very left-brain functional medical approach along with deep subconscious work. This allows powerful shifts in both the physical and energetic bodies. Dr. Jenny is a licensed naturopathic physician, primary doctor who got her training and residency at National University of Natural Medicine. She went on to be sought after adjunct clinical faculty member and ran her own successful private practice in Portland, Oregon. Dr. Jenny holds a BA in political sociology from the Evergreen State College. She teaches widely to the public, health professionals, and corporations. So let's get rid of chronic fatigue and get back to energy and vitality once and for all. Will you please welcome my guest, Dr. Jenny Fung. I can't say your name. I'm going to have you say it. Welcome, Dr. Jenny. Say your last name for us. Toofunkian, right? Fakian. I wrote fun. It's Fakian. Welcome.
It means son of a gun, if that helps.
Oh, very cool. What's the derivative of that? What origin is it?
It's Armenian. It's
Armenian. Okay,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Thanks for taking your time today on a Tuesday afternoon to come do my show in person. And once again, people, you can call in anytime during the show. Do so. The number's up on the screen. I'm excited about what we're talking about today because I think a lot more people than even they realize are suffering from chronic fatigue. And it isn't a one-size-fits-all deal, as we've talked about, and you know. So people need to address, there's a very specific reason for the fatigue, and that's what you help everybody with. But before we get down to the nitty-gritty of that, the causes and the cures, so to speak, I want to hear a little bit about you, your origin story. I want to go to your background, literally from where you were born, what your childhood was like, what your schooling was like, and what led you to become a naturopathic doctor and do what you're doing today. So we're going to hear your story first.
Wow, that's a big question. Thank you for asking it. I was born in Portland, Oregon, but I actually lived in a little town called Eagle Creek. And it was one of those towns where the downtown was the post office, the grocery store, and the gas station just in one building. And that's where I lived. And my father was a Presbyterian minister of a bunch of local churches around there. We moved to Salem and then to Portland, and I grew up. I'm definitely a true Oregonian, and went to our local public schools here, and really grew up in this area and had an incredible love of nature and spent my favorite thing was to go out and spend time camping, and I love to run around the woods that were across the street from our house, and I used to pretend that I was making medicine for my dolls, and I would wrap dandelion around their legs and pretend they were sick and try to take care of them. I read Elizabeth Blackwell's book on the first woman doctor many, many times and reenacted her life. It said that she slept on the floor without a bed, so I slept on the floor without a bed.
Oh, I love it.
And I grew up with this wanting to understand how my escape fantasy as an 8-year-old was to run away from home, move to Colorado, live in the woods, and have somebody find me that could teach me how to use plants to heal. I don't know where that escape fantasy
Eek.
came from.
That's
I was 8
scary.
years old when I started this fantasy.
Wow.
I started studying plants as a teenager and how they could heal. I was also really geeky and weird around food. I love your nutrition. I love how much you understand the value of nutrition. In sixth grade, when everybody else was eating Cheetos and bologna sandwiches, I was making my own whole wheat bread. I would bring a hunk of cheese and raw mushrooms and raw peppers to our sixth grade lunchroom, and everybody looked at my lunch like I was really weird. My father had met Linus Pauling. His mom went to the church that my dad was a minister at in that little tiny town. And Linus Pauling, who won the Nobel Prize for his research and on vitamin C, um, my dad had met him, and I was a fan of Linus Pauling as well and read his book quite young and was proselytizing the value of vitamin C again in sixth grade. So I was the weird kid in sixth grade. There's no doubt about it.
It's so cool.
Put
I
all
love
of
it.
this together in a very odd way. I really wanted to help the world and ended up studying political sociology as a way to try to understand what was wrong with this world that I was seeing. I felt like I saw a lot of suffering and things that weren't going right. And I saw people struggling, and I wanted to help. And I thought if I understood how the structure worked, I could begin to figure that out. I thought about going in and doing postgrad in law, sociology, education. I thought all of those would be valuable. But it's when I found myself pregnant unexpectedly with my son, a knee that was broken, so I couldn't do my usual work, which was baking in restaurants,
Mm.
that I had this huge epiphany that made me realize that I'd always wanted to be a physician. I didn't think I was smart enough because I got a C in a high school biology test. And I had blocked that part of myself out.
Mm. It's
And
funny
when
how
I
we do
realized,
that. It's so
right,
funny
isn't
how we
it?
do that. It's just like,
We
oh,
really do. I
I,
know,
I'm
I
not
know,
smart enough. I'm something that's not enough. So
I
moving
know,
on, and we
I
give
know,
up.
out of
But
so little
yeah,
evidence, right?
right,
So little
right.
evidence. And I also, often tell people who are trying to find their passion and what they really want to do in life, look back at what you loved as a kid. What did you love to do as a child? When I put all the pieces together, it makes so much sense for
Mm,
me to
of
doing the
course.
work that I'm doing now, where I'm working with people. So I found myself pregnant and made a commitment to this kid, right, for at least 18 years. Of course, it's been 32, and it's, that's parenting is not an 18-year adventure.
No, I have a 37 and a 34-year-old. It is
Yes, you
goes
get
on
it.
and on and on. Yes.
You get it. You get it. So, and when I made that commitment, all of a sudden the commitment to 9 years of education to become a physician didn't feel so big. And I knew that I wanted to do something with my life and be there for my kid as well at the same time. And this is what I chose to do. I chose to become a naturopathic physician where I get to bring in all of what I think health is. I believe health is on a physical level, a mental, emotional level, and an energetic level. I believe we have all of those bodies. And when we begin to address and pay attention to all of those bodies, then we're able to really experience that real health, that real vitality that we all crave and desire. I've become very focused in helping people who are struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, and long COVID, because that's the life journey that I was put into. I, as a second year medical student, was trying to have another child, had a second trimester miscarriage, and I know you've had other people in here talking about the challenges with that.
Mm-hmm.
I also had secondary infertility for almost 9 years. And when I had that when I had that miscarriage, it threw me into what I call a dark night of the soul. I was in bed, IVs in my arm, not able to eat, not able to sleep, people later came to me and they thought they were afraid I was going to die during that
Oh
time. And
boy.
frankly, I did too. I was really gone.
Yeah. It's a
And
tough
I,
time. It's a tough time. My daughter
yeah,
experienced one this past
yeah,
summer, just starting the second trimester.
I'm
Just
so sorry.
yeah, like 13 weeks in.
It's
So
a
it's a
grief.
tough. It's
It's a real grief.
yeah,
It's a real grief.
big time. It's a loss.
Yeah, that was my second one. So it was in that dark night of the soul. Then I was able to heal from a lot of that. I was suicidally depressed and had severe anxiety, and I was
Wow.
able to do a lot of a hypnotherapist came in and did some conscious work with me. It's really when I understand the power of the subconscious mind when it comes to healing. That got me from bed to the couch, but I was still very exhausted. And somebody said, "Do you think you have chronic fatigue?" And this is in the 90s. I was like, "Oh, get that label away from me. I don't
Yeah.
want that label. I don't want to be that." But it was true. That's what I had. That's what had happened. My body had dysregulated to a state where I now had what was called chronic fatigue syndrome at the time. It's now called myalgic encephalitis. I threw everything I knew at it. Well, I had to take a whole year out of medical school. I threw everything I knew at it as a young student and then as a new doctor once I graduated. And I finally did break through. And there was the final piece of the puzzle where I was able to completely heal, got 150% better, was able to go on to teach at the university, and I opened clinics. I had another kid. I had a very full life and never thought I would crash again. And then I did.
Oh
I
yeah.
had an accident, I had an injury, was in severe pain, sleep deprivation, perimenopause sprinkled on top. You had a perfect storm for me to go back into that deep hole. So when I realized how easy it is for people to relapse, once you've had one of these conditions, it's very easy to go back into the same pattern. The body knows that path. And it scared me. I was terrified that I was going to go back into, have to go back to bed. This time I had, my family was completely reliant on my income. I had a clinic, I had massive overhead. For me to stop working meant for my family to go bankrupt and for us to all go down
Oh,
together.
that's a lot of pressure on top of what chronic
It
fatigue. That I mean, no
was
wonder.
incredible.
Yeah.
It was really incredible. So
Yeah.
frankly, I just got up. I couldn't sleep, so I just got up and started studying. I started researching everything I could about chronic fatigue and began to understand what some of the causes might be. This is at a time when everyone was looking for one root cause for chronic fatigue, and I was beginning to think, I don't think this is right. This is multifactorial. I know it is. And a very bizarre thing happened. Usually, if I was sick or tired, then my patients kind of just left my schedule. The opposite happened. I started getting my clinic was filled in droves. I was booked out with these people that were all struggling with fatigue. And the gift of that was I was able to really begin to understand what it's like if somebody has one root cause versus another. What am I listening for?
Hmm.
What are the patterns? What treatments work for them? And I was able to really map out the 5 root causes that lead to somebody to have chronic fatigue and which 5 health foundations they need to have in place for any protocol, any treatment plan to work best.
So yeah, that's what that's an amazing story. But oftentimes, and I talk about this a lot because I have a lot of health professionals like
Yeah,
you on my show, and their
yeah,
story has led them to do what they do because they're
yes,
researching for themselves. There's something happened to them, and they have to dig themselves out. And in that process, they find that aha moment of where they belong. It's
right,
amazing.
right.
Um, and I just love that story because it's an inspiration for others who might be going through something, that their story matters and that their story has a happy ending, and they can work through it. It's not the end all. So getting into chronic, let's do this. What is the official definition of chronic fatigue? I know I said something at the top of the show. It's really, just on the internet. And then what are the 5 root causes? And then maybe
Mhm.
we can go through each one of those. So maybe somebody who's listening might recognize where they sit,
Mhm.
and then we can talk about, like you said, you have to recognize where the symptoms and to know where you belong in one of the 5, and then how to go down that road to healing. So, what are they?
So the actual definition of chronic fatigue slash myalgic encephalitis. And I include long COVID in that.
Yes.
And just to let you know, I also got long COVID. So the story continues in terms of the researching deeply
Oh, wow.
into how this is the same and different and how it feels and what do we need to do about this second epidemic that's happened now around people struggling with long COVID. About 30% of people who got COVID end up with some version of long COVID. So there's a lot of you listening right now who may be struggling with fatigue and brain fog that may have been triggered by having the COVID virus. Chronic fatigue syndrome, I laughed a little bit when you asked me what's the true definition.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any 100% everyone around the world agrees on the definition, which is a real problem with the condition. There are a couple different standards. There's a CDC, one from the CDC, one from Japan. There's a couple different ones. Generally, it means that you are still tired after rest, that there's something called post-exertional malaise. When you overexert yourself from what you usually do, you experience extended fatigue, tiredness that goes on for days or weeks after that. And it's the thing that people who struggle with this really fear the most, because they're afraid that if they go to work and then go meet their friends for drinks or go dancing, they're going to be completely on the couch all weekend long. It's really rough. Or those people who are already at home bound, if they do the dishes and the laundry, then they're going to be back in bed.
Wow.
There's when they talk about that you're not better with rest, there are some people who still have higher energy in the morning and crash in the afternoon. A lot of those people don't think they have chronic fatigue, but I still say that they do potentially have chronic fatigue syndrome. So that's really what it is. It's this ongoing discussion. Now, that said, there's been a lot of really interesting new research lately with advanced techniques, and we're beginning to understand that there's probably an alteration in the way that the immune system is responding to this, and people are getting stuck and dysregulated in an immune pattern that causes inflammation in the body and the brain.
That's what I was just going to say, because now you've set yourself up. You're a catalyst for disease. Mm-hmm. And right. That's where things like cancers and autoimmune diseases and heart disease and diabetes, I mean, certain things can start creeping in because your immune system isn't at the top of its, game. And I know when we're going to get into this, but I mean, our immune system is basically in our gut. So we got to start there. But our brain-gut connection is so vital that if emotionally, it doesn't matter how good you're feeding this, if this is not responding, if they're not connected, right? Which I know we'll get into. So then what would the 5 root cause? You know what? Let's take our first quick break. We're only going to take one from one of my sponsors, and we'll come back and then just keep the conversation going. Remember, if you have a question, you can call in, air code 323-524-2599. Here's your chance to get your answers. We'll be right back after this word from a sponsor. Cicera Olio de Oliva is an extra virgin olive oil company with a mission to provide high-quality, current-season Italian oils to families. They have partnered with 2 centuries-old family farms in the Tuscany region of Italy to grow, harvest, and bottle their amazing oils. Founded by a nutritionist who has a love of the land, sustainability, nutritious foods, and, of course, Italy, they strive for a peak freshness and high nutritional content in every single bottle. All of their oils are current season, extra virgin olive oil, bringing you a true branch to bottle experience, and I know firsthand. So, for an offer, go to www.CESIRAOLIVA.com and enter Balanced Life 10 for 10% off. I know you're going to love this healthy and delicious addition to just about any meal. All right, we're back with my guest. I'm going to try it, Dr. Jenny Tufekcian, and close, Flakian. And she's a naturopathic doctor who specializes in chronic fatigue. And just before the break, we were getting ready to talk about the root causes. And you have 5 of them. What are they, may I ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are root causes that can lead to that dysregulated body and brain, nervous system, immune system. And you may have one, two, three, or all five of them, and it
Mm.
just depends. Some of them you can have tests for. Some of them are things that we would figure out by giving you a treatment to see how you would respond. And some are frankly just history. What are your symptoms? When did it start? So the first one I always call the gateway root cause. It's the hormone triangle. I'm sure you've had guests on here talking about the importance of your thyroid gland functioning well,
Mhm.
of your adrenal glands functioning well, of your ovary if you're a female body, male if you're biologically male, your testes. That's the hormone triangle. That triangle works as a symphony together. If one is out of balance, the others start to really work hard to take care and balance the body out. Frequently, we get stressed out in this world. I mean, who isn't stressed? Are any of you out there not
Yeah,
stressed on a day-to-day
seriously,
basis
seriously.
with the influx of emails and phone calls and to-do lists and all of it? Just the climate of change right now is so intense. So it's really easy for our stress response to get altered, and that impacts our adrenal gland. When that adrenal gland starts to get shaky, the thyroid may begin to try to slow
Hmm.
us down. Or maybe the hormones, the sex hormones begin to start doing something. So this I call the gateway root cause because a lot of us run on the stress express, be overdoing, trying to do everything all the time, especially a lot of us who are parents and also have professional jobs. We tend to really be burning the candle at both ends. And this can be a real easy way for us to get into a pattern of chronic stress. When your body's in chronic stress, it's very hard for it to have a normal immune function. And it's very easy for your body to start to become dysregulated and start a downward cascade and become more vulnerable to getting something like myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, or long COVID. The second root cause is looking at chronic infections. A lot of us, we all have a lot more critters that are in us and on us that aren't us. We are host to many kinds of viruses. A lot of them we don't even have names for, let alone tests for. Yet those viruses or low-grade bacterial or fungal infections are so happy when you are too stressed out and your immune system can't handle everything that's going on in your body right now. And those viruses, especially things like Epstein-Barr virus, they just basically say, party time. You are stressed out, your immune system can't handle everything that's going on. And so they start to replicate, they start to make more of them. They invade your cells, start to alter your energy production, and exactly suck your energy away from you so that they can reproduce, and you end up feeling more tired and have a lot of symptoms along with it. The third is looking at your mitochondria. Your
Hmm.
mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cells. They literally are energy power plants. Like any power plant or like your car, it can burn clean or it can burn dirty. You ever buy that gas that was like that cheap gas on the way to the coast and your engine went ping, ping, ping when you were driving? Like, not such the best gas. Your engine isn't working as well. If your mitochondria are not functioning as well, you don't run as well.
Right.
And some people have mitochondrial dysfunction due to genetic differences. Most of us have mitochondrial dysfunction due to the things in our environment or the things that we're choosing to think, to feel, or to put into our bodies
Hmm.
or are around our bodies. And all of those things can impact the mitochondria. There is a deep interrelationship with all of these root causes, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the next root cause, which is looking at toxins. Toxic overload is a major gateway for people to end up with having chronic fatigue. I know, Debbie, you mentioned that you can have chronic fatigue and you increase your risk for cancer, which is true in some cases, but it can also go the other way. Some people who have cancer and get necessary treatments, but those treatments are toxic, like chemotherapy or
Hmm.
radiation, that
Hmm.
can become a trigger for them to then get chronic fatigue or ME afterwards because there's so much toxicity in the cells at that time. having mold exposure. Mycotoxins are byproducts of mold, and they're very toxic to the cells. Heavy metals, all of these things
Yeah.
get into the mitochondria so that you can't produce the energy the way your body needs it to produce so that you can feel vital and strong. The fifth root cause is looking at the power of the mind, the subconscious mind, particularly the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain. That limbic brain can get impacted by a multitude of things. It can be an emotional trauma from the past or
Mm-hmm.
the present. It can also be from any of these other root causes I've talked about. There's this beautiful nerve in the body called the vagus nerve that goes to your liver and your spleen and your lungs and your stomach. And it goes all the way up into your brain, and it talks to your brain, and your brain talks to your body through the vagus nerve. There are other pathways that they also communicate with each other, but this is one of the main highways that they use. And if your vagus nerve is feeling like things are not okay, which could mean you have that your gut is off, you have dysbiosis, you have irritable bowel syndrome, you've got parasites in your intestines. It could be because your liver's not functioning very well. You could have the viruses, you could have a toxic overload. Any of those things could trigger that vagus nerve to sense, things aren't okay down there. I'm going to let the brain know that not all is well and starts to send a danger signal off to the brain. If you have the danger signal in your body, and then you also happen to have some early childhood trauma, which I think all of us do.
I was going to say, who doesn't? Yes.
Yet met anyone who does not,
Yeah.
whether they know it or not, that you haven't worked on yet. You haven't allowed that unconscious pattern to become conscious yet. You start layering that on with this physiological response to dysregulation, things not being well. It begins to create a bit of a vicious cycle where then the brain sends a message down to the body saying, yeah, we're really not safe. I'm feeling really freaked out and scared right now. And that can set off a whole cascade of things, something called the cell danger response, where your mitochondria actually go into hibernation freeze state. So then your mitochondria are not working as well. So you can begin to see how the different root causes can start to intertwine themselves.
How do people recognize that they have one of these root causes? Just, like you were saying, a busy mom might just think, oh, I'm tired because, I have a young baby at home, I have a toddler, I have an 8-year-old, and I'm working part-time, so they just kind of set that aside and attribute it to that. How do you zero in on the fact, yes, it is one of these 5 root causes that you have of chronic fatigue? And then what's the testing? How do you zero in on that? And how do they recognize enough to come to someone like you? I know you have a quiz. We're going to talk about that because I think that's a good way to discover. It's a discovery. But how in general would somebody know that they are suffering from this?
It's such a good question, and I love that you asked it. And I love that you asked it with the sensitivity of how busy we are when we have children and we're working and all of that. I say that people who have chronic fatigue, ME, long COVID can talk about different kinds of tired, like wine sommeliers can talk about wine. And one of my patients says, I'm a sommelier of tired, because there are different kinds of tired. I know that when I had my second child finally, and I was terribly sleep deprived. And yes, of course, I was tired. I had that log over my head feeling of being tired from being up, whatever it is, 10 times a night. Yet there was this feeling I knew inside my body that when I got that nap, or when I did get the 3 or 4 hour stretch of sleep at night, it made a difference. There was still something there that was different. If you are in that situation and you are feeling exhausted and you don't feel like you can trust, how to get a break from it, that's when you need to start asking for support and help. And I would also say, because a lot of us, especially women, tend to put off getting our needs met, I'm going to back that off. I think men do it too. It's like we're not very good at getting help when we really need it. We're really good at surviving and continuing to push through. If you're tired and you're wondering, I suggest that you start asking for help and wondering and getting it checked out before, because I usually see people who really should have been getting support years prior. and it would have been a lot easier path for them if they had started asking questions sooner.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I, you, just about all of us can start thinking back like, oh, wow, yeah, or know somebody. I know my daughter who has a toddler and works is going through just being tired all the time. And if she was to dig in, take the quiz, she would realize she has chronic fatigue.
Right.
And what it is that this is a path that she's got to break in order to not get sick down the line permanently. Once somebody, I know there's like, once you discover that you do have chronic fatigue and you do discover one of the root causes for, let's say, a patient, how does the conventional treatment versus the way you would treat that individual once they discover? I'm just curious what it is. I'm not curious. I kind of know, but I want you to tell the audience what that path would be for them, that protocol.
Unfortunately, the most conventional practitioners really don't have a very good response for this condition. It's a part of the problem with how the conventional medical model, what their training is based on. I think they're excellent in what they do. But when these conditions are sort of in gray areas, they don't fit neatly into a diagnostic box because there's not one specific test that says yes or no, you have this condition, or a specific test or that says, oh, it's this part of your body that we need to fix, and here is a proven medication that works. It's really challenging for conventional doctors who work inside that model to know what to do. And frankly, a lot of them don't have the time to ask all the questions that need to be asked in order for them to really uncover what root causes are there for you. It's not the same for everyone. Everyone has a slightly different combination of root causes or health foundations that need to be addressed so that the treatments can work. And so it needs to be an individualized approach. And again, it's just not where the conventional model works. There are some chronic fatigue and long COVID clinics now. Basically, the long COVID clinics, they do some sort of pacing and breath work with people. I have yet to see any great results come out of there because I frankly don't think they're addressing the root causes in the way that would be beneficial for them. If anyone out there is listening and wants to work on this, I'd be happy to work on that with them inside of a medical system because I would love to see a change over there. I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be great in so many areas.
If anybody you work out there for a big HMO that want to get somebody in there, I'd be happy to do some consulting and talk about that.
It'd be so good if,
right?
In all walks of getting into that Western medicine sort of situation, and not
we can do this. We can do this health thing better. We know we can. We know by marrying the two that knowing what we know from different systems and practices and traditions, we know we can put it together and have an incredible healthcare system. We know that. We just need to.
And then someone like me comes in, and individually, once someone like you gives the protocol and what they need to work on, I become their advocate. I become the person who can help them stay on track, remind them of what their new situation is, and how to, kind of change the bad habits that got them there in the first place to the good ones. And so I think the health coaching field is really, flourishing because of that. But there's got to be more of that marriage, as you said, between, and, the average Western doctor spends 7 minutes with a patient, which that gives them a diagnosis of one size fits all, and not going through the time and the energy, doing the proper testing. My guest 2 weeks ago, she's a infertility or fertility specialist. Yeah. And, she, before you go down the IVF route, let's get all the testing done. Let's figure out what the root cause is. Why are you not getting pregnant? And she helps people. She changes their lives without them having to spend tens of thousands and thousands of dollars. Through IVF, she changes their lives just through the simple process but she spends the time and the energy and orders the right tests and puts them through the labs that they need. Doctors just do the one size fits all lab that doesn't necessarily dig in to where your root cause is. And that's the marriage is very needed. It's needed. Yes. The functional medicine with the Western medicine together, there's a place for both, I believe. And then there's that slide right in between that says we can work together and make everything easier, including creating insurance for functional medicine. Because I don't know if you do take insurance, but most naturopaths and functional medicine doctors don't. So then it becomes more of an elitist thing for people who can afford it. And that is also something that aches me so bad, puts a lot of stress on what I do because I want to help everybody. Yes. And insurance doesn't recognize the people that want to help everybody and individually get to what they're dealing with. So that always gets to me. So talk about a couple things. I know you have some programs that people can actually access through your website, and the quiz that we can. Tony, can we put that quiz up on the screen? I think I sent you the links, and that people can, and it's also on your website, but that people can take and see what does the quiz do for them? What does it tell them, basically, if they do this quiz?
I created the quiz using the same algorithm I use in my head when a patient sits in front of me. I sat down and I'm like, what is it that I'm listening for when a patient comes in and says, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, here are my symptoms. And I start asking questions because I'm ruling in and ruling out the 5 root causes as I'm asking questions. How somebody answers that question pings my brain to go, oh, okay, this is a higher likelihood. Let's see. They had mono when they were in high school. They felt they got better. They got into a car accident when they were in their mid-20s. They've never been the same since. Ping, 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 reactivation of possibly a viral infection. That's going on the list. We're going to order some labs looking at chronic viral reactivation. Or I hear them talk about, I am a physical trainer, but I can only walk a half an hour. If I walk for an hour or do a heavy workout, I get post-exertional malaise and I am strung out. I'm exhausted for the next 3 days. I have to really pace myself. This is a true case with one of my patients. I know that they have mitochondrial dysfunction and we need to do a mitochondrial challenge with them. So these are the things that I'm listening for, and I go down all 5 root causes in my brain as to what are the clinical pearls that I'm listening for. And that's what I created the quiz, so that you can take the quiz and get an idea of where your number 1 root cause might be. Now, that said, it's likely that you may have one or two of them, and some of you may have all 5. So, but go ahead and check it out and see what kind of interesting information, see if it resonates. I'd love to hear from you after you take the quiz and give me some feedback. I love hearing everything you have to say. Yeah.
And I think everybody individually, that's one of the things I say. When is the last time that you spoke with someone that actually listened to you about your health and wants to help you? That's one of my whole going down the path where I really dig in deep. Go ahead.
When I'm teaching physicians, and one of the things I think that we need to keep remembering, and I know you do this, Debi, with your people, you really listen to them and you're there for them and you hold them in their healing process. And I listened to your fertility specialist. I thought she was great. And I agree. I do the same thing. It's like very important. How you say things to me makes a really big difference in terms of me understanding what's going on with you. And so doing that full hour history in the beginning is essential. And then personally, I only choose labs that make sense for you. I don't have a set, everybody does these labs, because I don't think that makes sense. It makes sense for me to order the labs that are going to make a difference in what kind of treatment options are right for you. And so that's when I think it makes sense to use labs.
Let me ask you about that. Maybe you can give us an example so people understand now what the path they'll take for treatment. So maybe give us an example of somebody who, somebody that you were just talking about, without, invasion of privacy, but, a general and protocol of what the treatment you would prescribe.
I'll give you an example of a patient I met with earlier today, and I'll change some things up so we are
Yeah, so
not
we're,
sharing
yeah.
any confidential information. So, female in a professional academic setting, postgraduate setting, has gotten deep fatigue that came on about a year ago. And she was unable to work, had gut problems with nausea, headaches, deep fatigue, struggles not being able to function in her professional academic setting, had to back off and not do as much as she was doing before, had tried to go see some other naturopathic doctors and functional medicine people and wasn't really getting anywhere. Came to me and really felt like it she felt hopeless. She was pretty scared.
Mm.
She was wondering if all of this money she was investing in this postgraduate program was a waste because she wasn't able to work anyway.
Oh, geez.
And she was not sleeping great and could maybe walk 5 or 10 minutes a day, and that was about it. we I did a full history on her, and my suspicion was a reactivated virus. So we ran a whole conventional lab panel of just the basics. I want to make sure we're not missing any elephants in the room. So just basic blood panels looking at liver function, kidney function.
Mm-hmm.
What are your red blood cells, white blood cells doing? You can have normal labs and not have normal functioning body. A lot of people with chronic fatigue go in, they get labs done, and they're told all your labs are normal. You're doing great.
I know. How
Congratulations.
frustrating
And you
is
have
that?
really low blood pressure, high five. Whereas a lot of people have chronic low blood pressure
Yeah.
from their body being messed up. I also felt like she probably had some limbic brain dysfunction going on just based on the way that she was talking about her situation and some things that had happened to her in her past. And but I wanted to rule out some other things. She lives here in Oregon. We got to rule out mold and mycotoxins in the Pacific
Mm-hmm. So
Northwest.
much
And a lot of people who live in
rain.
hotter climates need to rule it out because it can be in the air conditioning system. So we had to rule that out. So we did a couple of different tests looking at chronic viruses. She indeed was reactivated for Epstein-Barr virus. So put her on some antiviral combination remedies. I usually find that if you're fighting off any kind of critter, it's better to do multiple things than one thing because you want to keep them guessing. You don't want them to be able to adapt. Like we have these super bugs now that can adapt to antibiotics because we
Yeah.
just gave them one mechanism where it killed them and they adapted to it.
So
When you use the
what are, I'm just curious, what are several things? Like what would you?
What would I use?
Yeah.
So there's 3 to 5 different herbs that I like to use, and I don't use them all at once. I tend to cycle them through. Things like olive leaf extract, cat's claw is really great. Monolaurin is another one. I usually do high doses of either L-lysine or
Mm-hmm.
valacyclovir, which is a pharmaceutical. Depends on the patient's preference and what we think is best for them based on lab testing and history and that kind of thing. And then I also use homeopathics. I use homeopathic nosodes with people to help stimulate the immune system. I talk about the body has a physical, a mental, emotional, and an energetic level.
Yes.
Sometimes I find some people who in the past have had protocols that haven't worked for them. It's because they're working all on a physical level and they need more of the energetic or the emotional support. So that's the other thing that I'm listening for is which level really needs to be supported here in this person.
Love
For
that.
the person that I'm talking about, she had definitely had stuff on the physical and definitely had a lot of stuff going on the emotional level. And as she's really wicked smart, and she's also willing to do everything that I put out there, and so she's doing it, and she's made massive amount of different changes in
And
her
how
health.
long of a period? I'm just curious.
This
When
has
someone,
been I think it's been 4 to 5 months
okay,
that
so it
she's.
takes a few months for
Oh,
things to change and
yeah,
adapt.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
moving forward, how long will she have to be on these protocols? And you keep testing to see if the tests change?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always checking. I'm listening to what are they saying. Usually what I hear my patients saying is the floor is rising, which is exactly what she said. She's like, I feel like my baseline has gone up.
I love
What
that.
used to be me being tired is way higher than what me being tired was before I started working with you. She now has more bandwidth and resilience, able to exercise more, able to do more things. She still has to be careful with how she structures her day. She can't like just go out and party all night long without
Right.
blowing herself out. She knows that. So she's not doing that. But within there. So timeline varies massively per person. It depends on how many root causes we're treating, how consistent you've been with doing the things that we talk about doing, and also how long you've been sick. If you've been sick, some of my patients have been sick for 20 years and
Mm.
not gotten the help. And so working with them, I love working with them, and because I love seeing the
Because you're
light come on, the
changing their life.
transformation.
Yeah, you're giving them life. It's amazing. I see that too. I see
Yeah, you know,
that
it's like, oh,
change. And that's
yeah, it's
part of the reason
beautiful.
why I got into it, because there's nothing better than
There's
helping
nothing
people
there.
live the
There's
life they
nothing better.
deserve to live
Just
and
like that.
feel good.
Oh
Can't
my
live a
gosh, you
good
know, so
life
these
if we
people.
feel bad, you know?
Right, right. So it's usually 6 months is enough time
Mm-hmm.
for most people for us to get to what are your main root causes and getting working on those. 6 months, usually people are noticing a very significant change. I'd say it takes 1 to 2 years to get completely out for most people to where you feel like you no longer have to energy budget or be in fear of things.
Energy budget. I love it.
That and so it's just sort of
Yeah,
but it's very independent. You know, some people 2 weeks on a protocol, they're like, whoa, I feel so much better. And some people
takes longer.
2 months
Yeah.
later, we're still like, okay, well, we've ruled this out, but we're still digging in and trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. And I think what I always want to let people know is you need to keep knocking on those doors. You need to keep doing that search. There is an answer. There is a way for your body to get back in balance. You need to have the faith and the belief in yourself to keep going until you get the support you need to figure out what it is that you need so that you can be fully vital again.
That's amazing that you said that, because our time is up, and I was just going to ask you for some final words, and that those are a great way to wrap it up. But I also want you to give your website, because, like I said, you have programs that people can actually download and get into, which is really wonderful. And it also, if you go to her website, you'll also be able to see that you do so much on speaking on your Instagram, so people will be able to access all of your social platforms too. So, for those that are just listening, can you give your website?
The website is drjenny, Jenny, Tufenkian, TUF as in Frank, EN as in Nancy, KIN.com. The quiz is tiredtypequiz.com. Tiredtypequiz.com. That takes you to the quiz. I'm like you. You're welcome to apply to have a free 30-minute visit with me if you'd like to chat, and for me to give you some thoughts about where I think you need support next. I'd be happy to talk with you and meet with you. So that's all in the website as well.
And on the show notes on my YouTube channel, I'm going to put the link to the quiz. And that will take them to your website, but it'll take them straight to the quiz, and they can do that. So that way, I have to say you must access this, because if you have any kind of twinge of anything that we were talking about, but especially if you're fatigued or tired and you're just chalking it up to this or to that, take the quiz. You might discover something that you can make a difference in your life that could last a lifetime. Dr. Jenny, I have to thank you. I love getting experts like you on my show. It just opens doors for people, I think. At least for me, it opens up doors to understanding, living your best life. And there's only, what I was saying earlier, only one way to do that, and that is to be in health, in body, mind, spirit. All of it's connected, and I know we didn't even go down the path of, the food protocol and things that have to change, because I'm sure you go way into that with your patients, but it can be done. It can be done. I've seen it over and over again, as well as you have, and people like you, I just applaud. I'm so happy to have, people that have studied this and done the research and are helping others to live their best life. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I so appreciate you as well. We're definitely in the same camp.
Yes, we are definitely connected in that way. And I want to thank you, my audience, for coming today and listening to us. Please leave a comment. Go ahead and just give a little subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get more and more content like this. But leave a comment, and Dr. Jenny or myself will get back to you post-show. And I also want to tell you to keep going out and finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. All right, everybody, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Jenny. Bye.